We'll get started. Good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, August 21st. It's 6:32 p.m. It is our the Citywide Council on Special Education's August calendar and business meeting. We will get started. First, interpreters, if you could please introduce your service to our community. Spanish interpreters, could you please go first?
You're muted.
Yes, Spanish interpreters are going to speak now. This is the interpreter QA. I was trying to do a tech check before you guys started, but one of our interpreters was not ready, but now she has joined. So just give them another minute and they will be able to give the announcement. Thank you.
Okay, if we could have the Mandarin interpreters, please introduce your service first.
Yes,
Thank you.
this is Mandarin interpreter. Good evening, everyone. The following announcement is for Mandarin interpretation line dialing. 晚上好，欢迎大家来到本次会议。如果你需要中文普通话翻译，请你拨打电话34796641114，然后再输入会议的 ID 516473404，井号键，再播报一遍。如果需要中文普通话翻译的听众们，请你拨打电话34796641114，然后再输入会议的 ID 516473404，井号键，谢谢。Mandarin announcement completed.
Thank you, Mandarin interpretation. Appreciate it. Is the Spanish interpreters ready now?
Yes, the following announcement will be in Spanish. Muy buenas noches. Para recibir servicios de interpretación al español, favor de marcar desde su teléfono al 347-966-4114 y puede ingresar el código que sería 463-848-25, símbolo numeral. Nuevamente, para recibir servicios de interpretación al español, favor de marcar desde su teléfono al 347-966-4114 e ingresar el código que sería código de reunión que sería 463-848-25, símbolo numeral. Muchísimas gracias y favor de mantener su micrófono en silencio para evitar ruidos al fondo. Spanish announcement is complete. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Rose, you ready for roll call?
Yes. Francesca? Here. Dr. Sinai? Heather Daly?
Here.
Mark Gonzalez?
Present.
Wrong. Maggie Sanchez?
Here.
Susie Wong?
I'm here. Connection's not that great.
Irene?
Here.
We got 6 physically. Ron, Irene. Okay. All right. We are at quorum. We have 6. Next order of business, appointment of a timekeeper. Do we have someone who wants to be a timekeeper tonight?
I said I was gonna do it last time.
There we go. All right, we've got our timekeeper. Thank you. Next is the election of officers. So we have 2 open positions right now, recording secretary and treasurer. So those are positions that are certainly needed. If there's anyone who would like to nominate someone or self-nominate themselves, please feel free we'll start with the recording secretary. Are there any candidates for the recording secretary position?
Here, I've talked about it with Maggie, and I feel like with the help and guidance of Rose and all you experts here, I am willing to take that role on. So yeah, I nominate myself.
Okay. Thank you, Francesca. Any other nominees? All right. So at this point, Rose, we need to do a roll call. You have 2 minutes if you'd like.
Oh,
to speak?
um, I'm excited to be a part of this group. I'm happy to be present. Oh, I'm excited to be a part of this group. I'm excited to get more information, learn from everybody here, hear other people's voices, concerns, and be a guidance and just a person to hear what people have to say. And I just want to learn. I have 5 kids in DOE. I was a PA president. I was also in CEC1. I also was in many other groups where it talks about the importance of kids and just advocating for our children, because that's our future. So that's basically it. Quick, easy.
Great, thank you. All right, Rose, can we have a roll call vote, please, for recording secretary?
We are now voting for the role of recording secretary. Francesca Maria, I'm sorry,
I agree.
Heather Daly,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Yes.
Maggie Sanchez,
Yes.
Susie Wong,
Yes, very happily.
Irene.
Yes.
That is 7, congratulations.
Yes.
All right. Heather?
Can the interpreters just please post their information in the chat and then we can copy and paste it throughout as people come in so people are able to access interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
May I
The-
also say something? I'm so sorry to interrupt because I don't know if you guys hear me well.
We hear
Um,
you, Susie.
Oh, okay, wonderful. You know what, and I think it was in the comments as well too, but there is no camera overseeing the full room. I don't know if that might be just maybe something on my end, but I saw it also in the comments.
Sorry to interrupt. This is one of the interpreters. I'm trying to find the chat to post in, but I don't see it listed.
Molly, I actually already just posted it, so no worries. Thank you.
So. So, Susie, there is yeah, so Rose has got it up. Thank you, Rose. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. And congratulations to Francesca again. Sorry.
you know how, please feel free. Okay. No, thank you. We've got some DOE tech support coming to try to change the camera option, but thank you. There we go. Although I look better the other way.
You're too funny. You're too funny.
All right. Thank you, David. The other open role, well, the lone open role at this point is treasurer. Are there any volunteers to be treasurer? Any candidates for treasurer at this time? Going once, going twice, we will hold the position until next meeting. All right. Next on the agenda is the Office of Special Education. We've got quite a team here tonight. Anyone from Office of Special Education like to speak? Looks like Suzanne Sanchez, the Chief of Special Education. Suzanne?
Thank you, Mark, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. Happy to close out or almost close out summer as we get ready to kick off the brand new school year. I'm joined by several colleagues, both within the special education office tonight and several colleagues who are colleagues across the aisle in another division. So I'm going to hand this over. Before I do that and have my colleagues introduce themselves, just some very, very quick updates as I said, as we start to lean into this school year. Last we spoke, we were speaking about summer and summer services and summer programming. So I want to share here that this summer we served over 7,000 students for related services in person at various sites across the city. So that is incredibly exciting. That's a record high for New York City Public Schools. And this includes 2,000 students in preschool. So really excited and glad that we're able to support our youngest learners and 5,000 school-age students from across the city of New York. We are focused on getting ready for September 4th, where we welcome students back to school. That's right, lots of woohoos there. We expect an active, busy, robust school year, and we are focusing on building capacity in our school districts. So helping ensure that all schools are equipped and resourced and ready to welcome all learners that come into their building. On one exciting note that I can share here as well is that the special education office led by Michelle Metzer, who leads our specialized programs, is going to be training all new paraprofessionals on topics that many of you have asked for, including behavior management and how to facilitate positive behaviors, supporting students with autism, supporting students who use assistive technology, and learning a bit more about what disabilities are and what inclusion means. So we are going to be training a few thousand paraprofessionals starting this school year and moving forward every year thereafter. Thank you so much, and we're looking forward to partnership this school year. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Amoy to introduce herself and her team of folks that are here tonight.
Let me jump in real quick. So we're going to do a different meeting tonight. So thank you, Suzanne. This is going to be actually a discussion. There's going to be no slide decks, no PowerPoints. This is really a discussion about policy, advocacy, and what's going on in the city, what's going on in the state, what's going on at federal level that impacts our students and families. Because there's a lot of things going on that we're going to touch on tonight. We had a list of about 12 things that we gave the teams to look at, and that's based on feedback from all the council members. It's really trying to see where we are, and we'll touch stuff like busing, we'll touch stuff on dyslexia, ADHD, related services, contracts, different bills and legislation that's necessary for our students to get the services they are required to by federal law, state law, and local law, and really see where the holdups are or where we can help facilitate things and move things forward as a community. And so, really honored to have the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, Policy, and Advocacy teams here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you all so much for having us. So I'm just going to quickly introduce myself and we can go around so folks can introduce themselves. My name is Amoy Barnes and I'm the Senior Executive Director of Intergovernmental Affairs. On the Zoom is Rachel Arnaud. She's our Director of Federal and State Legislative Affairs.
It's like I work here. Hi, my name is Katie Jedrelanik. I'm the Senior Executive Director of the Office in Policy and Advocacy. Amoy and I work very closely together on different policy priorities that we as an agency are trying to focus on. I'm going to turn it over to David next.
Me. All right. I'm David Mantell. I am the Executive Director of the Office of Policy and Advocacy. Happy to be here.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you coming to talk to us tonight about what's going on. So why don't we start off with FAPE 22? So FAPE 22 is federal law. It's FAPE's free and appropriate public education. It's built in federal law that a federal court ruled about 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago in Connecticut. There was another ruling that basically said that students can attend call it K-12 education through the age of 22. The state came down with various rulings over the last year or so, reaffirming in the last week that FAPE 22 exists and we need to keep our 22-year-olds in school if necessary through the end of the school year. It's a pretty good ruling for it's a very good ruling for students. I think one of the issues is we did not have state money tied to it. And so each school district in New York State is on the hook to pay for that. So I guess the question is, what is and if you don't know it, that's great. We'd love to get information later. What do you think the cost needs are for the city to fulfill the state's mandate? And where are the holdups that, if you know of, where we can get that FAPE funding? Because it is a critical component for our families. Those students that need that extra year, we want to make sure they get those services, but we want to make sure it's funded. We can't have unfunded mandates happening to our state, our cities and districts. It doesn't work. So I'll leave that there.
So the question really is, what do we as a city, like what resources do we as a city need to meet the goal of FAPE 2020, which is all 22-year-olds who are can stay in the system. I don't know if the SEO office has any.
Thank you so much. So first of all, Mark, huge appreciation. Way to put your finger right on the pulse of breaking news. We were very excited to see that affirmed, that that's the expectation, that students are able to go to school through age 22. As you all know, New York City Public Schools has funded this without it being funded by the state for the past 2 years due to our deep commitment to our students who are transitioning from our school system. We really believe that that's important and that's what they deserve. We cannot continue to do it as an unfunded mandate. And so we've done it in good faith. We've done it because we believe it's the right thing to do, and we must have state funding for the state requirement in order to do this. I do not have an exact cost for you in terms of what it will cost. It's something that I'm happy to be in continuing conversation with you on. I think that the clarity, though, and I just really appreciated the letter that came from the state following the court ruling, was the New York State Department of Education has consistently said this must be baselined in the budget, and they have not been listened to. So the actual education department of the state is like, we're telling them they have to do it. You all need to fund it. And so far that has not happened. My hope is that with this new court ruling coming down, there were a few districts in New York that said, okay, I'm going to take it to court. And when the court said, no, you must do this, I hope that that will be a united front among all districts in New York to really speak with a consistent voice to follow the recommendation of the New York State Education Department. So happy to support in any way as we move forward, but I think there could not be a more clear case that funding needs to happen.
Oh, thank you. In terms of, oh, sorry.
I was wondering, Andy, so you're saying this education department has included this in their budget priorities every year. I'm wondering if it might be helpful for us to just share with the group a little bit of what that process looks like at the state budget level. And I don't know, Amoy, if you want to do that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
That'd be helpful for me.
So when it comes to legislation and our legislative process for New York City Public Schools, what usually happens is that our office and our team reaches out to all the divisions to ask them to give us a list of about 2 to 3 of their top legislative priorities. And so, the divisions, work to, figure out what are their 2 to 3 top legislative priorities, usually on the state and on the city level, state or city level specifically. Once we get those 2 or 3 priorities, we then kind of whittle them down to about 3 to 5 for New York City Public Schools as a whole. And we do that because, one, we are one agency in the larger scheme of New York City agencies, right? Like, so when we are doing advocacy and outreach on a legislative level, we have to send those legislative priorities to City Hall. And City Hall then takes those legislative priorities and whittles it down to, let's say, 1 or 2. And so pretty much, and once again, because we're in the bigger scheme of the city, they're thinking about what are the 1 or 2 legislative priorities that we know we have the ability to push among the other 1, 2 legislative priorities of DOHMH and DEP and DEZ and all these other agencies, right? Once we get the, I guess you can say, okay from City Hall to say, hey, listen, these are the legislative priorities that we know we can work with you guys on and that we can really put our as much energy and time and effort behind, then we can begin facilitating the process of engaging elected officials around those that legislative agenda. Now, I want to add that it doesn't mean that those other legislative priorities that we get internally fall to the wayside. What we try to do is sort of work with City Hall to say, hey, listen, we can do the work, can we do the work on our own to engage on these issues as much as possible, because they're just as important. They'll tell us whether, they're okay with it or not. But overall, that's sort of the escalation process. And I want to say for this group, first of all, thank you as always for your advocacy and for the work that you do, because honestly, I cannot stress this enough how important it is. I came from special education as a director of the Staten Island Transition College Access Center, so I know the importance of making sure when we talk about students staying in school until 22 years old, that we're talking about proper and appropriate transition services and support that our students with special education get. So trust and believe this is something that's deep and dear to my own heart. That being said, for you guys as an institution, as an organization, where your advocacy and where the work comes in legislatively is to escalate, as you're doing right now, your legislative priorities and your legislative initiatives to Dial, because Dial does a really good job, and we're working with them all the time to communicate to us, hey, listen, this is they flag it for us. This is something that's really important. We need to bring this to the forefront. And so we flag it for City Hall, and we do the necessary escalations to see what we can do. And just like Andy said, an example of that was a perfect example that you gave, sort of thinking about, okay, is the state really thinking about funding up until 22 years old? How are we making sure that's baselined in the budget, and how are we looking at that? So that's sort of a bit of how we do legislative escalations. So I always want to set the stage for that, because I always want to keep it realistic and honest and say, hey, listen, I know that there's so much out there that's really, really important. And we do our best to find a way to get them on I guess you could say, the scoreboard. But when it's not there, we try to do some work on the back end to get it to where it needs to be.
And this is a great first example because what's nice about the role, Amoy runs our intergovernmental affairs office, which has a very established role in the agency, and then our office, mine and David's policy and advocacy, is new. And what we try to do is we try to think about, okay, these are the things that are on our agenda, but these are the other things that we know are important. How can we work with other partners to make these things a reality, even if they're not, the two legislative items that might be on the agenda for this year? And the reason I asked about that is because I know that the state education department has a lot of sway as a state agency in the state budget process. Now we know that they're going to support this. Maybe we can work with them. There are a bunch of statewide advocacy groups that we work with very, very closely. Groups like the New York State School Boards Association is an example. What they call the Big Five school districts of New York, which is us and the other four biggest school districts in the state. Actually, they have like 7 or 8 now, but they still call themselves Big Five. So we try to think about who's the coalition that we work with. What's the strategy we can develop to say, yes, we want this, but also all these other people want this. And that's really important in the context of how the state makes big budget decisions. So that was a great first example because it allowed us to talk about how our teams could sort of tag team working on these sort of things together.
Good, Heather.
So I was just thinking about when we spoke about the funding up to age 22, and I also know that as a council, one of our things we want to highlight and I guess bring more funding and more services to, and you actually by giving us your background with the TCAC in Staten Island, it made me make the connection that transition services for our high school special education students transitioning into after their post high school has kind of always been a gap, and maybe kind of relating those two in that advocacy that funding can, maybe I can see that funding commingling, because it's the same population of students. So.
Okay. So you mentioned budget, so let's jump on the next topic, which is budget. I mean, we had a challenging budget this past year. Technically, we got more foundation aid as a city than year prior, but the state, because they changed the formula and how they calculate, effectively ripped us off $314 million. One of the challenges was the regional cost index. I know we pushed that hard at city level, and we had plenty of advocates pushing as well for regional cost index. Magically, only the County of Westchester was calculated. Of course, you have Benedetto and Shelley Mayer, who both have large part of their district in Westchester, along with Andrea Stewart Cousins. So there's no magic to why that happened. The question is, how are we going to get the regional cost index for the city and really for the rest of the state? Because certainly there's plenty of other parts of the state who need it. And then the other thing from the Rockefeller Center recommendations was students with disabilities enhancement. It was a key focus, and of course the governor threw that out as well. What are those things that we think we may push again, at least the regional cost index, or is that something we think is going to be on the back burner because it's kind of built in at this point?
I always say, don't stop pushing and don't stop advocating. I'm a big believer that, your role, especially as parents and advocates, is to keep advocating, keep pushing. And we need that to continue because it's our students, it's funding that's needed. I will say that, when we were up in Albany and the chancellor was up in Albany, we were advocating hard, we were pushing hard. The chancellor was, we were talking to everybody, everyone possible. So I don't ever want to say, no, it's set in stone. Next year is an election year. And I want to emphasize this. It's an election year. So my role being at Office of Intergovernmental Affairs is I deal with the politics. Okay, politics. That's what I call it. I keep it real. I know what it is. I know what I do, right? And dealing with the politics, you got to understand how to play the game. Yeah. You gotta know how to play the game, and you gotta know, when to go, when to push back, when this. Next year is an election year, and if there's any year to push, is next year. The governor's running for re-election. It's gonna be a very, very interesting race. And I think that there is an opportunity there to push for the resources that we need as a city. Why? Because she needs New York City votes. She does. That's how, really, this is just how it is. This is the game. This is politics. She needs the votes here. She needs to have wins. She needs to show in her budget that she's giving things to New York City. And I think that next year is an opportunity to really go up to Albany and say, this is what we need to get our support. You didn't do this for us last year, but why can't you do it for us now? What's stopping you? So that's where, once again, I'm going to say this, your role and what you guys come in is really important. To talk to your elected officials, to talk to all of them, to say, hey, there's no reason why we can't get that foundation and funding. She's running for re-election. Let's fight for it. Let's make it a priority. Now, internally, in terms of, I would say, the politics of those legislative agendas, and I'll speak very candidly, I think that we know that mayoral control is on the table as well, and that's probably going to be a top priority, as well as EPPs, which is always a top priority. But once again, all those other things are always on the table, and it's a great opportunity to start advocating for that.
I think it's worth explaining to people, though the state legislature does things in a 2-year cycle. So we're actually in the middle of a 2-year cycle right now. So any bill or piece of legislation that was live last session is still live. If I'm not mistaken, did Senator Liu introduce some bills around the RC? We'll have to check, but
There is.
yeah.
Yes.
So
The
yeah.
busing one, I think.
Yes, that is also still live.
Yep.
And to Amoy's point, it is a little hard to predict what the city's priorities are going to be come January, but we do know the budget, like death and taxes, comes every year. There's always an opportunity for us to talk about budget priorities, which has its pluses and minuses. So it's always important to us to raise New York City budget issues. I do know the school governance law is up. That's going to be a priority no matter what the approach is there. And I'll just say I've worked under 5 different chancellors and 2 different mayors at this point, and in roles related to this, and the EPPs has always been a priority. So again, the approach might be different, but the issue will still be there. And I know that's been on your list too as well.
So EPP, employee protection. So the backstory of that is August 27th, PEP, Panel Education Policy, has a vote on bus contracts. They will rubber stamp another year of the bus contract because of a state ruling, was it about 10 years ago now?
I want to just, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Our current bus contract expired in July. I shouldn't say our current one. We passed a what we call like an emergency.
Mhm.
Yes, we passed an emergency short-term extension, which is like 30 days and can be automatically renewed for another 30. That's all the PEP has voted on so far, is basically 60 days of the same bus contracts. We're talking now with the bus companies about the next step there. There are, you know, we are allowed to do another extension with them. It could go up to 5 years. It could be less. We haven't put anything before the PEP yet about a lengthier extension. So we're going to see what happens there. We've heard a lot of feedback from the PEP about the length of the extension, and a lot of feedback that like a long extension doesn't make sense. And we are in the middle of this push to try to get the state law changed that we think gives us a lot of leverage in that. So that's ongoing, but there was some confusion earlier this month about what was on the agenda and wasn't for the PEP so far. I think they voted only on the 130 to 60-day extension. We haven't put anything else in front of them yet.
Yeah, so Senator John Liu has Senate Bill 1018, which is the EPP bill, which would allow changes to the law, which will allow us to have real bus contracts that actually are focused on the students and not focused on everyone else but the students and families, because honestly, that's what the bus contract is right now. It's everything against students. Having a kid who's been busing since he's 2.5 years old, and he's almost 16 now, and the trials and tribulations of a bus route that takes 4 hours sometimes to get home for 13 miles is insanity. And you know, he's excluded from after school programs. He's excluded from weekend programs. He's excluded from programs that every other student in the city gets, and he's entitled to that, but he's not allowed to do it because we don't have busing for after school programs. And we can't have a long-term extension. We need the law fixed. And we need to then get a contract that's appropriate. Maggie, then Heather.
So I wanted to mention also that at the last PEP meeting, it was highly emphasized about the time limits for the extensions and the bus contracts. They are listening. We just need to keep adding the pressure. We need to put, our testimony in writing. We need folks on the ground to come up and talk about their experiences and just keep that pressure up. The chair of the PEP said he would not, like he said it publicly, that he would not be extending it to 5 years. Well, he would vote no. I don't know about the rest of the panel, but that's something to come up. And also, I wanted to bring up the governor. How does the governor play a part for those in the audience watching? How does the governor, you mentioned the change in governors, right? So how do they play a part in all of this?
Before my response to that, I just want to let people know the PEP actually also passed a resolution about the EPPs in June. This is a newer thing that our PEP is trying to do to raise their voices up, and that has also been a useful tool for us in talking about this with people. Like, there's a lot of real concern about longer bus contracts. And then only if people look for the bill, I don't want them to be confused. The number was right, Mark. The sponsor is Senator Jackson. So Senator Jackson, S118. Yeah, sorry, that's in our contract. We have to do that.
Sorry, Senator Jackson, you're amazing, Senator. My apologies.
Yeah,
Deepest
Senator
apologies.
Jackson, I think AM Tapia is the one who AM Tapia holds
Yes, on assembly.
on the assembly section. So just for clarification, so the governor runs every 4 years, and the governor position is doesn't have term limits. So the governor could run until they lose, or, until they decide not to run. And Governor Hochul is running for reelection for the 2020, what year is this again? 2026. I'm sorry. It's just sometimes I'm like, wait, what year is this again? Time just flies. Okay, for 2026 reelection. So the cycle is every 4 years for governor, every 2 years for your for state senate and state assembly. Next year is the governor running for reelection, and of course your state senators and your state assembly members are running for reelection. So when I'm saying that for your state elected officials, this year was for city elected officials, for next year state elected officials, they're gonna be very aware. There's a lot of heightened awareness during an election season, right? Especially an election season that has a governor running for reelection. That's what makes it even more hyper aware, because the governor's running for reelection next year and all the state senators and state assembly members. So that's where, so in that sense, it is an opportunity. That's what I look at it as an opportunity to sort of like highlight and push on the foundation aid and any other EPPs and these other very, very important and sensitive topics that might have unfortunately, I want to say, maybe got sacrificed in this year's budget, right? Because the governor had, a certain political agenda that she wanted to meet. And so she put other things in the budget and prioritized other things in the budget. Hence, we saw that the budget was very, very late on the state level. And there was kind of like this back and forth. So next year, being an election year, is an opportunity to push a little harder your state elected officials, your state senators, your assembly members, and the governor in the direction that you want, and to be very vocal, because they're going to be extremely hyper aware. They're going to be paying a lot of attention to who's making noise, and that's just the state of politics, unfortunately. And I hate this, the state of politics is really the loudest people in the room get sometimes, but there's that too. But believe it or not, during an election year, the loudest people in the room actually, because they need voters. They do, they need voters. And so, I think that's what I mean when I say next year is an election year, the governor's running for re-election. So she's gonna be, I think, a bit more strategic and open about what she does, especially on the city level.
But in terms of school policy and just the budget and how like her decisions affect our kids directly, correct? And a lot of the priorities that we have, like the EPP, so the governor has the power to veto anything that comes to her desk, even if the legislature, New York State legislature passes it, she has that power, and she has a lot of sway, correct, with the budget and the priorities that we have, and so just wanted to highlight that as well.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Which is why we do a lot of work on the back end. We do a lot of work on the back end so that when it gets to her desk, the work has already been the foundations have already been laid, the work has already been done to sort of get it over the finish line. That's what, Rachel does up in Albany, Katie and her team do, getting the advocates and everyone together, just sort of, we do a lot of work internally to make sure to push it across the finish line.
Yeah, I just want to say with the EPPs, this is one of the first things that our offices worked on kind of collaboratively. And I feel happy with the progress we made this year. We picked up an assembly sponsor. The bill moves out of a committee for the first time in a long time. But I also do generally feel like people are this is a very complicated issue. And it's hard to tie this like employee protections of provisions thing directly to better busing contracts. And we've been very lucky to have a lot of partners in this, including you guys who have been explaining this to people and really helping people understand why this is important. But I'm glad that you raised the veto, because I had worked on this a version of this legislation previously that we did manage to get passed through 2 houses of the legislature that was vetoed by a previous governor, not the current governor. So you have to make sure we get through all the steps, and the strategy has to take that into consideration. That's something that we think about every day.
I just wanted to add something to what Amoy was talking about earlier, and I think one of the reasons why we're talking about the governor a lot, when it comes to the budget, it's often the governor who's setting the tone, right? And the legislature is the one who is responding to what the governor has put forward. And, you know, when it comes to something like foundation aid, as you mentioned, the Rockefeller Institute report, I think there's a lot of opportunity there because there were a lot of ideas held within that report. And it's not an issue that's going to go away anytime soon. And it's something that we think about a lot as well. But just like in the city, the mayor puts out his preliminary budget and then the city council responds to that. Similar in the state, the governor is the one who kind of sets the tone and the legislature responds. And so do we respond as a city as well.
So real quick, Heather, before that. So what is the timeline for the executive budget? I mean, we know when it comes out, but what's the timeline in terms of when the governor's staff, OMB with Blake, when are they starting that process? I mean, how far in front is it that we need to be in front for the executive budget to get it in there or to lobby it before it's too late?
She'll announce an executive budget in typically in January. Yeah, and sometimes in an election year it's a little later, but it's typically in January. And then so her team will probably start working. I mean, they're probably working on it already. And they're just, you know, it's a huge budget. 80% of the stuff, you know, is, you know, something that they do every year, but probably in the fall is when the governor's office will really start to be talking with people about what they should be prioritizing. And then the back and forth between the governor and the legislature typically happens from January to the end of March. In some instances, like last year, the budget runs late, but it's supposed to be done by March 31st.
Heather?
So I just wanted to point out something about the busing contracts and why it's important. Is the way the contracts are written out and the way that they're awarded and who they're awarded to allows a persistent violation of special education students' civil rights. They're often on buses for hours at a time. They're late to school, consistently late to school. If my kid is tardy 10 days, the school can call Child Protective Services. But if the bus gets them to school 2 hours late every day for 3 months, it's not a big deal. And it also, the way that the contracts are written too, there's no busing home from after school. And I know a big push in all of the mayoral races is like after school for all. After school isn't for all if you don't have busing for students with disabilities to get home. And so not having the contract support students with disabilities violates their civil rights.
Thank you, Heather. All right. Okay. Well, let's transition. I want to go back to some budget issues a little bit later, but let's talk about early intervention. So early intervention's a challenge throughout the state. It's really a state issue that's negatively impacted our kids in the city. Back in 1994, the early intervention basic rate was $79. As of 22, it was $69. It actually dropped, and that's the state funding. We've got a problem. Early intervention's in crisis mode in New York City. It's in crisis mode in New York State. Where do we need to go to fix it? It sounds like it's back to the executive office and the gain of 3. But is there any insight on how we can attack that problem? Because it's real and it's impacting our kids and it's only getting worse.
I will say 2 things in response. New York is also pretty unique in a sense that our state education department is the only state agency that the governor doesn't directly oversee. We have a board of regents that are selected by the state legislature, and they are the oversight for the state education department. They pick the commissioner, and I say this because it seems esoteric, but it's important in understanding political decision making. The governor, you know, has, unlike other state agencies, she doesn't get to, no governor gets to exert the level of control they do, which gives them some different incentives around funding certain programs and things like that. So one thing that is interesting is that unlike other state agencies, the state education department, has this board and this commissioner who are a little bit more independent of her. And so sometimes if you watch the budget hearings, you'll see, unlike other state agencies, they sometimes come with a very different perspective. They are, I would say that I've seen this issue on their agenda years and years and years, years and years and years. So, they are a great partner in that way as a state agency. We're very lucky, like I said, to have these other sort of statewide, anytime it's a state issue, we have these state partnerships that we can work with as well. We're also very lucky in New York City to have a really robust, I mean, I don't have to tell this group this, special education advocacy or organization, some really great partners that, our office has been lucky to work with so far on a variety of issues. And I think this is exactly the sort of thing that we want to, going into our next years in office, even build up more of like these more targeted issues that we know our partners are pushing, and how can we be a part of that?
Thank you. I think, let's go back to budget again, and let's talk about big thing coming down, which is class size law. We're in year 3 of a 5-year process to get to 100% compliance or deal with the exemptions that are built into the law. A lot of state leaders are saying we're fully funded now because Foundation Aid is fully funded. It's basically half truth. Leaving out quite a few parts of the puzzle. Thank you, senators and assembly members, for doing that, and governor as well. Charter rent, right? We're the only district in the nation that has to pay charter schools rent, where they can self-deal with themselves. And thankfully, we've had some judges come down and rule against the state when self-dealing has happened. That being said, we have a bill of over $200,000 a year, which no one else has to pay, so we're clearly not fully funded there. Transition aid, which is a funding of school districts by the state when kids go to charter schools. We are, again, the only district in the state that does not receive, with the miraculous cities over, or districts over 100 or a million students, or however they phrase it, when they phrase it. So we don't get transition aid. We don't have charter rent. So we clearly aren't getting the foundation aid that we're entitled to. How do we lobby on that? Because obviously those are 2 big pieces of the pie, along with the regional cost index. You're talking well over $500 million between those parts. And I know there's other things that I haven't seen that I'm sure we're getting hosed on as well at state level. Are there any other ones that come to mind that we're also getting hosed compared to other districts and, the other big 4 and the other smaller districts? What else should we be advocating for, and who do we need to go after?
I'm going to share something, which is anywhere in state law where it says for a city of 1 million or more, that's, hey, New York City, screw you. Yeah. And it happens quite a lot, not just in education, but other places. Look, we are a very unique city. We're a very unique district. The state treats us differently in a lot of ways, including in education. I will also say, the Rockefeller report that you refer, I will just say, was actually a really, really interesting read. It was actually a really great government report. I'd recommend it for anybody who wants to, learn a lot about state education funding, particularly for the city, but also more broadly. Had a lot of really good suggestions. I hope that the state doesn't completely ignore it in the future, and it keeps being part of the discussion as they continue to look at foundation aid. We've had legislators say to us, like, oh, if you want to change these charter things, just tell us it's important to you. Tell us, just ask, and I'd say, okay, look, as a general rule, we don't like it when you make us pay for things, and we also don't like it when you exclude us from pots of money. You can go ahead and safely assume we don't like that. But as Amoy explained, in the grand scheme of things, like, there are some things we know there's going to be, any budget is a compromise. There's going to be things that the legislature has to make decisions about. Things like the RCI are far more important to us often, but it is, I'm interested to see I worked at the legislature actually when they made the change about the charter rent, and I do think the costs are at a point where they didn't expect them ever to go. And I think as more legislators, realize how much it's starting to not to cost us, but really cost their local schools, it's something that they're more and more interested in. So we try to keep a close eye on when the tide turns on things like that and when it makes the most sense to really push forward on things. But I do think it's good to know, like, look, we don't like to spend money and we don't like to not get money that everyone else gets. It's frustrating for us as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Heather?
Oh, I was just going to point out to folks in our audience that may not be aware. So, because I wasn't when I first started advocacy, is under the state, New York City is considered one school district. And then the city breaks that one district up into the smaller districts that we're more familiar with. So when we're talking at the state level, New York City is just one big school district. It isn't District 2, it isn't District 3, it isn't District 4 at the state level. It's just New York City.
And I think the part that what you guys are really talking about is the fact that the charter schools are counted in that whole school district. So when folks always look at when folks are thinking of New York City school district, they're usually thinking of just New York City public schools. But that's not the way the state looks at us. They look at us as New York City schools and includes public schools and charter schools. And so the expectation is all that funding is being disseminated to all the public schools and the charter schools, not just to New York City public schools. So I think that's where sometimes a lot of confusion and frustration lies, because we're like, yeah, we're New York City public schools and we have close to 1 million kids to serve. But honestly, what ends up happening is that we're serving, including the charter schools, probably close to, I don't even know, 1.1 million with the charter schools. Yeah. So that's what a bit of that's where our frustration lies, and that's what kind of makes it difficult when divvying up that pot of money.
So going back, no, thank you on that. Going back to the class size law, I mean, it's happening. The state's been pretty clear it's happening. What do we need legislatively within the law to make things palatable? I mean, obviously there's a money ask out there, but what else is needed?
So I think this is going to be a really interesting year, and I'll personally interested to see in September. As I'm sure you know, we laid out, I can't remember the dollar amount, but quite a lot of money in the spring, about 3,700-ish new headcount for schools, targeted at the schools where we knew there was going to be the greatest need to be in compliance for this year. And I think we're going to be very interested to see how successful that is. I think money is a part of this, of course it is. But to make successful smaller class sizes, which everybody agrees is an important goal, you need space. You need teachers. You need teachers. I mean, that's actually probably going to be the biggest challenge of this. And that's a finite resource. Those teachers have to come from somewhere. They're going to come from other schools in the city. They're going to come from schools outside the city, which I don't know is something that the legislature necessarily thought about either. So I think I'll say I think this fall is going to be very helpful for us as an agency in seeing like what worked and what we might need, and I think it's going to be illustrative for the legislature as well. So I would say I would love to talk about this again in about 2 to 3 months when schools do complete their hiring. I know schools are working so hard right now to fill those vacancies, and a lot of schools are doing some really creative things. We have a great human capital team and teacher recruitment team who's been really creative about it. So we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, the teachers are certainly the most immediate aspect of this. And maybe this isn't the right moment for this, but I was actually going to kind of ask you all if you have thoughts on kind of what's happening with the class size law, if you have concerns, if you have things that you're thinking about in particular when you're, asking us about it that are coming to mind.
I have a few, but I'll wait for other council members. Anyone feedback on class size? All right, so a couple of things. How the law is written, it is really focused on the union having the focus and really not as much on the parents. They'll see the SLT is in there, but anyone who's ever been in SLT knows it is controlled by the principal because they control the principal effectively controls half the seats because the teachers report directly to the principal, and parents obviously don't want retaliation either against their kid because their kid's in the school. And so that is not a real parent-focused organization, and I know the state will use that cop-out, but the real world is, having been on the SLT for a number of years, you always are concerned about retaliation. You hear from chapter members here in the union who talk about they will not go against the principal because they do not want to be excised. That's just the real world. The SLT is not an independent organization. It's not a parent. It is a principal-focused organization. And so again, you have a union and you have a principal focus, but you don't really have parental involvement. And I think that's a huge missing part of the law. I think another thing that needs to be in there is, look, we know in Queens we don't have the space, right? We need to build out. SCA has not been, we'll say, following the law in terms of specifying to the level of detail that they're required to. That being said, no matter if they can, I mean, they could take over a bunch of buildings tomorrow and reinform, and they're still not going to have space. We need to give families an option to do a transfer, right? We have safety transfers. We need to give the families an option to transfer their child out of a school that is overcrowded. And it's got to be treated like a safety transfer in terms of it is effectively a safety issue for these kids. If they're in an overcrowded school, it's a safety, and we need to change city policy to give a family the right to choose a school that is not overcrowded. It's got to be the families that get to do that. It cannot be the family welcome centers. It's got to be the families that are given that opportunity.
I think my concern with the class size law is that when schools have to abide by the law, it changes how they budget their money. And we have seen in the past that that money's got to come from somewhere, and it often comes from vulnerable student
I'm gonna
programs,
see
like
mine.
special education programs and
Never
things
had
like
that
that.
issue. I was trying to send to Valentina.
Yeah, but they want to know who you're sending money to so they could tax you.
So, yeah, so
From
that's
the
always my
Apple?
concern as schools are wrestling with
Yeah,
meeting
because
their
Hi,
obligation under the.
Moises, can you mute your line, please, Moises?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That are trying to meet their obligation, that it doesn't sacrifice services for special education, extra programs for, like, my son's school has a morning academy or sunrise academy to help, do more test prep, which I think I have opinions about that. But anyway, but things like that, like those special programs that they make happen won't exist anymore because they're trying to meet the class size obligation. So I guess providing some kind of oversight to make sure that our vulnerable populations are not losing access to services because the school is under budgeting pressures for the class size law.
All right, so I've been informed we are at our 50 minutes, but I want to, if everyone's okay, I'd like to extend another 10 minutes. All right, so Ron,
Make a motion to extend this part
Thank
of the
you.
meeting by 10 minutes.
There's a second. All in favor? Opposed, abstained? Good. All right, 10 more minutes. Ron, you're up. Thank you.
Yeah, I have the same opinion as Heather, just because now we're talking about the class size. We want a smaller class size. Yes, we do. We really want it. But as in CCSE, we are serving about the student with special education. Now we are having many students that they have missing para, OT, speech, or any special service they need. And now all the government, the mayor, or the DOE, they always talking about we need more money to fund our program, like the class size, like to hire more teacher, to hire more special education providers. So to me, it's kind of a little bit contradicted, these two programs. So if we keep pushing the class size, but at the meantime, the DOE or the governor or the mayor, they keep saying that we have no money. So how can they going to push the special education provider program to get the service that for those special education kids that they deserve?
Ron's hitting on the head, and we've got so many challenges in this city. Funding's a large part of it. We've got related services where kids are not getting related services they are entitled to. It's real world. It's happening all the time. What was it, 11,000 plus kids that did not receive some of their services last year? And we've got to do better. We've got to find a better way. Part of it, honestly, is we need to redo the contracts with OTs, PTs, and paras, right? When the contract was signed with the mayor and the UFT, there was one group that was against the contract and voted against it until they got strong-armed by Milgrew and UFT, and that is the PTs and OTs. And why? Because they are getting significantly underpaid as compared to speech therapists who effectively go through the same level of training. And yet we're treating our OTs and PTs as second-class citizens, second-class teachers, when they have to do all the credentialing that a speech teacher does, that a special education classroom teacher has to do. There's no reason PTs and OTs should be paid less, and that's why we can't hire them, because they can get a lot more working privately than working in the DOE. And then you've got paras who get an average of what, 37,000 a year under this contract. Milgrew, was nice enough to say, hey, let's give him a $10,000 pay every year. He wanted to do it out of contract because it made him look good to get reelected. But the real world is they were going to be taxed at effectively a bonus level of taxation, which is a much higher level of taxation that could be imposed on them depending on their overall family's financial situation. It would not calculate into their retirement funds. It was a terrible law. Unfortunately, Councilmember Joseph went along with it. Thankfully, it did not get passed. We need that contract fixed. 37,000 is not, under any circumstance, appropriate for what the paras do for our students, how critical they are, and how important they are. And unfortunately, UFT thinks they're not important, except when it becomes campaign time when he needs to be reelected. We need the mayor and the UFT president to step up, do the job, fix those 3 contracts. It's critical. And we need to see where DOE can or cannot help with that. Because I understand there's a political part. Maybe when we got a new mayor, if there is a new mayor, that might be a different story. But I certainly want to put out there because Ron's 100% right. We've got kids who are not getting their services. It's a travesty. It's breaking federal law. It's hurting our kids dramatically. The main reason, I think, in a lot of cases, because they're way underpaid from what they can get in a private practice. And we know that because we can obviously hire plenty of paras when they're not UFT employees. We can hire agencies to do related services. It's a little tougher, and there's extra stipulations and rules that DOE has to go through, but we can hire them. We just have to pay enhanced rates. And that's the challenge. Yeah, Suzanne, please.
I just wanted to go back to one point. I'm not even, no, I'm not gonna go there. I wanted to go back to one point on class size law, and I really want to reinforce what David called out around the need for teachers. And I don't want it to get lost on this group about the need for special education teachers is so critical and crucial. And when we talk about advocacy and partnership and lobbying, um, potentially working together with universities, with the state credentialing boards, and how can we increase the special education teacher pipeline to meet class size law, and so that our children with disabilities have the qualified special educators in place that they need. And I feel like that could be a really strong place to come together in, like, we need much wider pipelines to have more special education teachers go through programs and be licensed and credentialed in New York so that they can be in front of our kids on day one. And so I encourage us all to think about how we might do that together.
Irene, please.
Yes, so I just want to point out the importance of having stability of special service for our special education students. I know that not of parents do let me know that they have a big gap between starting service like OT service, speech therapy, or maybe PD service. They have cases that they have been in a gap between a month to couple months to half year. And I feel like that it's very important for them to have a stable service with those specialist teachers for the student to provide a support for them.
So thank you for that, Irene. And that is something as an occupational therapist, very near and dear to my heart. And I'm joined tonight by Melanie Leong and Shona Gibson, who are leaders in our related service department, right behind you. And we have work to do to fight against the national shortages of occupational therapists and speech therapists that every other school system in the country is fighting against. I had an opportunity to speak with Chicago Public Schools last week, and the first question he asked me was, where are you getting OTs from? Because we are all having the same issue, and it's not okay. It's not an excuse, but it is where we are. And we are working very hard in different ways with our contracts. Mark mentioned we have a new contract for related services that's going to be coming. We're going to be paying our contract therapists higher rates than we paid them last year, and hoping that more will come to our schools. And we have to figure out how to get students the services they need as quickly on in the school year. And so we appreciate you bringing that up, and we're going to talk more about that as we go on together. But please know this is very much front and center for us. And the national shortages and just the challenges around that are real, and we have to figure it out because we have to do better as a school system, and we know that.
A lot more topics we could talk about. I think we'll end with talking dyslexia. Part of federal law, IDEA, talks about child find. It is a school district's responsibility under child find to identify disabilities. We are missing the boat when it comes to dyslexia and other reading disabilities, and it's a problem. The current mayor campaigned on the fact that everyone would be tested for dyslexia. Didn't really happen. There was some screeners that test for reading difficulties, but not specifically for dyslexia. And as Heather just said, also for older kids, it's not happening really at all. Where do we need to go legislatively to fix the dyslexia child find problem? I mean, it's in federal law. It shouldn't be a problem, but yet it currently is. What is it? State? Is it city? Is it where do we need to go?
I think that's something that we can probably maybe look at on the city level, to be honest. And I say that to say, because once again, the mayor has, as you said earlier, he has the discretion. I think going back to the uniqueness of New York City public schools, right? Like, we are, as New York City, a creature to the state, but to a certain extent, there is a lot of autonomy that the mayor has. It is mayoral control, and under mayoral control, it gives the mayor a lot of autonomy and control over the school system. And so implementation of dyslexia screening is something that on the city level can, in all honesty, can be done just by the mayor saying, yes, we want to implement this. What we're talking about in general is the funding to implement something like that. And I think that's where I think on the mayoral side and the city side, where there might have, and I don't know too much about exactly where it went from wanting to do every student getting screened to, certain students getting screened. But honestly, what it comes down to is funding, right? As we just talked about before, there's OPT there's a lot of shortages. And so when you talk about screening every single student, in all honesty, realistically, it's not easy. And I always want to make sure, and I say this all the time, to set very honest and clear expectations. It is not easy to do that because it costs millions of dollars to do. And it comes down to, okay, we look at the budget, or the city looks at the budget and says, where are we gonna get the money to do this, right? So under our current school governance system, yes, essentially the mayor can, look at it and say, okay, this is something we want to try to do, but how do we do it? And I think that's something that's a bit more complicated. It's more budgetary focused. It's about where resources can be implemented. It's a logistical issue, and it's a budgetary issue. And Mayor Adams himself has been, as we all know, very open and honest. And I think to a certain extent, we have to remember, and I say this all the time, our politicians, they're not our saviors, right? They're not our saviors. But at least what he did do is talk about something that hadn't been talked about before, right? And put it on the front, put it on a platform, give it a platform. And although where we are might not be where we want to be, but we're at least, we started somewhere. Not to say that it's perfect, but at least we started the conversation. We had the conversation, and we started somewhere. So that might not necessarily answer the question fully, but at least it kind of, I want to say, explain why we might not have that at the moment.
Add on that one also.
I just wanted to point out too, like, I saw the articles come out about the state tests and how they're seeing improvement in reading scores. But if you break it down to students with disabilities, only 1 in 4 students, and I think it's actually less than 25%, were proficient in reading. So it's not okay that less than 25% of students with IEPs are reading proficiently. It's just not, it's unacceptable. So this, I think, ties into that. Changes need to happen. Yeah, just put it out there.
Could not agree more, Heather. And just want to speak briefly to the screening piece, and I strongly agree with what Amoy shared. This is work for us to collectively do here at this table and working with our partners across the city as we support our schools to do that. We'll be meeting with our superintendents, looking explicitly at disaggregated reading scores and math scores for students with disabilities. And because we have to pay careful attention and not lose both. There are gains and we are not okay. And all of that is essential. So I don't know that this one in particular is something to bring to the state. Like this is work for us to do.
Add on kind of a smaller scale, I was formerly the city legislative director, and I worked on a bill that was, I think it was Jamani Williams' bill about mandatory dyslexia screening for 18 to 21-year-olds who are incarcerated because of the relationship there. And I think, I'm glad that you're bringing this up because, as you mentioned with New York City Reads and all these things, it's the right moment to be talking about, things related to literacy and stuff like that. But I agree. I think it's more of a city conversation.
Ron, then Heather. Ron, go ahead.
So I just happened to discuss with the other parents about the last year issue in this summer when we are talking about the busing issue and the other missing service for the special education kid in the summer. So I heard that it costs a lot for I agree with the lady just mentioned that it's not realistic to screen every student in our educational system, but we can just focus on those. We have the report from school every year, and we know that which student they have best score on the reading or the writing part, and then we have that general screening, and then we can screen out those students that may need some more help on the reading part. And then I also heard that there's a chapter school in Staten Island. So it called Bridge Preparatory School, and that school, they have their disaster program apply to every single student over there. So my opinion is so we can reduce the cost of screening because we have the school report every year. And then we can provide with the service in every single school, just like the class, the 1 or 2 class service, just like give an parents class, something like that.
One sec, Irene. And to add on the runs, I mean, one thing I will give kudos to the city, they are adding the Brooklyn Literacy Academy, which is focused on students who have reading challenges. Primarily focuses on dyslexia, but other programs as well. It's the 3rd Literacy Academy with Bronx, Brooklyn, and Harlem. So kudos to them. We still need it in all 32 districts, so we got a long ways to go. Because we need to be able to identify every kid, and they're in every district, they're in every school. We can't just have 3 schools that focus on them that are literacy academies. We need similar programs, as Ron called out, throughout the city, throughout every borough, throughout every district. It's got to be much more. Heather, then Irene. And we are at time, but we'll extend a few more seconds.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make the comment, how is proficiency being measured for our students? Because I know for a fact, my kid can't show his proficiency in reading on a computer-based state test. So if that's the way it's being measured and graded, he's never going to be proficient, even though he reads okay, right? So it's also just thinking about how we're collecting that data, how we're measuring their proficiency of students with disabilities, because it's not an accessible platform for every student if it's being measured on the state tests.
Thank you. I want to just jump in on that because I happen to have the pleasure of being at a presentation where our current school, our chancellor, Aviles Ramos, delivered a keynote. And one of the things she was emphatic about was that state testing is not the sole measure of our kids' achievement, and that it is one metric in the box, and that she was like, our kids are much more than a test score. So I just wanted to call that out.
Irene and Francesca.
But I just had I have
Yep.
one more
Sorry,
thing
Heather.
too. If we teach all kids how to read like we teach dyslexic students how to read, then we wouldn't have to worry so much about cost of screening and identifying and blah, blah, blah.
Thankfully, we are getting closer to a phonics-based system, but it is still not a program like an OG, Orton Gillingham, which is what Heather's talking about. Irene, Ron?
So I know it's very difficult to start with, and I know it's not possible to screen all the students to begin. And I'm thinking about beside of the measurement of role talk about, if we also be able to screen all the student with IEP, so we can find out, we can compare or we can measure if the student have the possibility of the next year.
Thank you. Ron,
Yeah,
let Francesca go, and then you. We'll close it out.
Okay, so this is something that's very close to me because I knew something was wrong with my child, and I'm still in the process of getting her the help that she needs. And I know that you said that it takes a lot of funding to provide for every child, but I feel like the person that should be speaking about these children are the teachers, because my kids' teachers saw something was wrong with her and they were like, this is not ADHD, because that's what they wanted to just label her as. And I'm like, this is not an ADHD case. And the special education teacher was like, this is not ADHD, this is something more. And then when I told them, I was like, I think she's dyslexia. And they're like, no, no, no. And then they started noticing stuff and they're like, yeah. So I'm blessed that the school that my kids is in, they have a program where they can take the kids out and have them, 3 of them or maybe 10 in a classroom, and they help them, and they're treating her like she has dyslexia, but she's not being labeled. But I'm still in the process of doing that. So I just think it should be the teachers that feel like, all right, this child, we do see signs of dyslexia, like they should be the ones to be able to push over the reference for these children so the process could go faster, because my child's about to be in 3rd grade and she's not reading at a good level at all. And it hurts me because she works so hard on it. And it's just, we just need the teachers to be able to have a stronger voice when it comes to the children and their needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron?
Yeah, because currently So currently the DOE teacher, all the psychiatrists from DOE, they are not able to diagnose dyslexia for those kids with the issue. And the parents only, the parent only have to go out to see the neuropsychology to screen them and to diagnose them. And the cost of this service is so expensive. It's about 5,500 just for the doctor's fellow. It's just for the doctor's fellow, or 8,500 in NYU Child Mind Institute and no DOE voucher. So it's really hard for parents to screen out their own kid and pay out from their pocket.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Ron. We're gonna, Maggie, one thing, okay,
Just
go ahead.
one before, yeah, because I know we're out of time, but well, you know, I'm glad that you all came and that you were here and that you gave us the time. We have a lot, as you know, we have a lot more other topics that we wanted to discuss, like the 853-4410 funding, increased rate setting, the pay increases for the EA providers, the Nice Bus expansion, the transition funding, the charter school co-location, school rent, and co-location changes, Clean Air Act, cell phone ban, social media ban. So, you know, let's keep this conversation going. I hope that we can have a follow-up another time, because as you can see, there's a lot of interest in on these topics. Thank you.
I was about to say, I can't believe we didn't even talk about the cell phone ban.
I have that right here. We got time, but yeah.
I want to say one thing, and I want to say I really appreciate this conversation. And one of the reasons when the chancellor asked us to create this office, and people will say like policy, what does it mean that you work on policy? Everything is policy. But one thing we really try to do is identify, like, almost all policies and almost all laws have good intent, a good idea behind them, right? And a lot of special education is like this, right? Like, oh, we're going to make sure every kid gets a screening is a great example of who would argue with that. But I'm a firm believer that a successful policy has to think through how you're communicating about it, how you're engaging about it, and how you're actually implementing it. So many things we talked about tonight: the class size, the OTPT para funding, the bus drivers, the dyslexia screening. I'm going to add one more thing, which is nursing, right? You have to think about how you actually make those things happen. And those all involve staffing, and they involve state, federal, and local law. They involve very significant budgeting issues, which is budget is so important. Funding is so important. No one in this agency is ever going to tell you funding is not important, but you also we want to look at where the holes and sometimes contradictions are in those policies that make the actual result not what that policy intended to be. So I really enjoyed this conversation tonight. This is exactly what we're trying to think about and trying to think through, and thinking through how we can work with you all to fix these kind of things. So thank you so much.
Thank you for all your time. Thank you for all you do for our students and our families within New York City. It is appreciated. I know you've got a insane task of trying to appease everybody and nobody at the same time often. But it is deeply appreciated, and thank you for this discussion. And hope to follow up. in the
Thank
future.
you, thank you very much, everyone.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, next we have public comment. So if there's anyone who has any public comment, please raise your virtual hand and we will recognize you. Public comment? All right, I do not see any hands for public comment. Is there a motion to adjourn the calendar meeting at this time then? Oh, sorry, Irene? Good. We're gonna hit them up. So, yeah, that's gonna be off of special education. So Irene had a question about parental involvement. And that's something that we do not need policy from any legislative wise. It's just working with the Office of Special Education. So that will be Suzanne Sanchez and her team will work with on that, Irene. Okay. At this point, do we have a motion to adjourn the calendar meeting for tonight? Is there a motion to adjourn calendar meeting?
I agree.
Okay,
A motion
Sure.
for it to end.
adjourn.
To adjourn.
Is there a second? Anyone want a second adjourning the calendar meeting? We have the business meeting next, but second for adjourning?
Second it.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning the calendar meeting, say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Calendar meeting is adjourned. We will resume in about 10 minutes. So call it 8:07. We'll resume with the business meeting. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right, it is 8:10. Apologies for the delay. That was all my fault. We are back for the business meeting for the Citywide Council on Special Education, August 21st. Again, it's 8:10 p.m. All right, Rose, can we please have roll call?
I'm here.
Present.
Present.
Yeah.
Present.
All right.
Sorry, present.
The mic.
All right, so we are at quorum, so thank you, everybody, for continuing on. And I'm sure Susie will be back on when she can. We got a timekeeper. Thank you, Francesca. And a recording secretary as well, all in one. Love it. Next order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes for June 12th, June 24th, pardon me, July 17th, and our meeting on August 7th. So hopefully you've had a chance to review. Are there any changes that anyone proposes for any of the agendas? So Rose has updated the roll calls to show when they are excused, what the rationale in that is based on our bylaws. So thank you, Rose, for those updates. Really appreciate it. So if there are no objections or changes, then we will accept the meeting minutes as presented. One last moment. If you have an objection, please let me know.
So I'm
Maggie?
just looking, is our new, our new member, Darlene Martinez, is that, I don't know, there's a typo, I think, in there. I think. Yeah,
No,
that's just the only
thank
thing
you.
that I can pick up.
All right, we will get that updated. Thank you, Maggie, for that call out. So with the change as presented, are we good with the meeting minutes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, meeting minutes are approved with the one change. Thank you. We have Tamika. Tamika, do you have any updates other than I'll talk about the open positions? So Tamika is our face representative for everybody out there. Yeah, you can just hit the button if you'd like. Hit the button. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I know that you had a rejection,
Yeah.
So I know that you had a resignation, so,
So
the council can put out, a vacancy. That's,
So everyone's aware, Darlene Martinez, yeah, so just so everyone's aware, last night Darlene sent Rose an email, resigning, from the council, or this morning, last night or this morning. So unfortunately, she has a family issue she has to take care of. We wish her and her family all the best. but it is going to leave a vacancy in our council. And so we are down to 8 plus the 2 PA appointees plus the student appointee.
Correct.
Okay.
So we want the council to be able to put out those notices for the vacancy. We are currently working on, those additional, members that, we are reviewing the application. So we should get back to you shortly about those PA, applications as well.
And those are the applications for the CCHS
Correct.
role that they applied to. We have 5 applicants at this point in time.
5 applicants that we are working on is once they get cleared, then, you can move forward.
So, so basically what happens is we have 5 applicants that have submitted their candidacy. FACE still has to go through an approval process. We are waiting on FACE to finalize and approve everything before we can actually interview the candidates.
That is correct.
So that's kind of the holdup. So we haven't called a special meeting because we don't have technically any candidates that are approved to interview.
We're waiting, legal to review those and approve those applications.
So that being said, as soon as we get candidates approved, we will then set up a special meeting. It is in our bylaws, we have to do a special meeting, and then at the next regularly scheduled calendar meeting, we would then vote on any or all the we'd vote on candidates for that role. And it's a thumbs up or thumbs down for each candidate individually. But again, we need to wait until we have approved candidates through the vetting process.
Has there been any student member applications sent to you all?
No, currently we have not received the student, applications as of yet. I will definitely follow up with that.
I have a question about the student application. So in the past, we had a junior as a student member instead of a senior. And she actually ended up staying on as a senior as well, and she was amazing. I think for juniors, it's just a little bit easier to balance because when they're in their senior year, they're focused on college applications, they're focused on all of that stuff, and it taking this on is quite a bit if they want to be a really pretty active member of our council. And so I just asked that maybe being open to having juniors apply as well. I'm not sure. I mean, we have precedents that it's happened in the past, so I'm hoping that will help maybe wiggle the rules a little bit because I can update our website to state that.
I can look into that, with leadership and regarding, that request and then get back to the council.
Yeah, hit the button.
Yeah.
There you go.
So Mika, for the public advocate appointees, any update on the vetting process of that, if that's something that or that you can follow up or something?
So, the public, those appointees, we received those 5 applications currently. They're being vetted by legal. Once we get, the feedback from them that they're approved, I will contact the council and then you can start that process with the special meeting.
No, for the public
Public
advocate.
advocate, my apology.
So they're in the vetting process then as well for PA appointees, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so it's the same as our CCHS. They're all tied up in the same group that does the vetting for all of them. And so that's where we're tied up. Ron, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was a little bit off previously. So, how long it would take for screening the candidate of the CCHS or the student or the public advocate?
So, once we get the application, it goes, the CEC info, we'll get those applications. We'll double check it on our end in FACE, and then we'll forward those applications to legal for approval.
Thank you.
It usually takes, probably, I don't want to say because it varies, right? Depending on how many applications they have and the time it takes to vet each application, because we want to definitely be sure that the information is correct and that they're able to go on the council with any other issues, because we don't want to backtrack. Right. So we want to ensure that that information is correct and exactly there's no conflict of interest. And then we'll provide you with that information with those candidates.
Even though the candidate you turn down, right? So you're screening for all the candidates that submit the application. So for those you don't like it and you turn them down, so we still receive the reason, or the candidate will still receive the reason that's why they being turned down, right?
Yeah, so it can be a number of things. It can be that they're currently working with the DOE and that it'll be a conflict of interest, or if that person does not live within that district, or if they don't have a student, it can be a number of different things, right? But we as FACE will contact those candidates and then inform them of the current situation with their applications.
All right,
I
quickly,
ju-
Heather.
Just so it's out in the public meeting too, and also for our new members, so the student member, we don't pick that member, face, and I think the dial office, interviews and they select and appoint a student member. So we just kind of advertise the application process and kind of put it out there to encourage people to apply. And it's similar with the public advocate. We don't have any knowledge of who's applied. We don't know who's interviewing. But it's important to note for the public advocate appointee, you do not have to have a child that attends schools here. You just have to have a knowledge of special education and have ties to community, that kind of thing. So you don't necessarily have to have a child attending school to apply for a public advocate appointee position.
Okay, we are at time, so thank you. Tamika, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks. All right, next order of business is the 2025-26 budget review and approval. It is the last page in your packet from Rose. It's the proposed budget. It's the spreadsheet looking sideways document. All right, so Rose, you want to run through it? Or you want to, so basically it's the 20, we're allocated from the city 25,000 annually. Rose has put the numbers in here for the proposed budget on the far right. We have till March to make changes as appropriate. And depending on what we decide to do in our committee discussion upcoming, we may want to move at a later date some money around. We certainly have some flexibility, and I'll be honest, there's a little bit of cushion in some of these categories at this time, knowing we may need to move some money around later. But we definitely have plenty of time to do that as we need to fund whatever services or programs we're trying to do. But is there a motion to approve the budget as presented?
I make a motion to approve the budget as presented.
Is a motion, is there a second? All right, thank you. All right, all in favor of the budget as presented? Nope, sorry, thank you. Rose, it says it's a roll call. She's 100% correct as usual. Roll call.
Approve?
Approve.
Yes.
Approve.
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 We actually have a budget, 6-0 approved. So we have an actual budget now, so thank you, everybody. Rose was a little hamstrung for the last couple of months with no approved budget, so very appreciated. All right, next on the agenda is the calendar review and meeting schedule. So that was a discussion we had last meeting as Francesca was whispering in my ear. Thank you, Francesca, for keeping me in line. So So most, our bylaws make it clear, we're supposed to have our meetings on the third Thursday of the month unless there is a holiday or other, reason to change. One of the things we've got going on in the month of September is the first Thursday of the month is the first day of school. The next two Thursdays, including our normal third Thursday, have parent-teacher conferences, which in this case are their normal back-to-school meetings, meet your teacher, that type of thing. And so the only Thursday that works, or sorry, it's the third Thursday and the fourth Thursday are the back-to-school nights. And so the only Thursday that would actually work and not conflict with those would be September 11th, 9/11. I ideally would prefer not to do a meeting on 9/11 because of obviously the significance here in the city with that date. But in theory, if we wanted to stay on a Thursday schedule, that would be the date we would need to go with. Rose has done some checking. The dates of 9/16 and 9/19 are actually available if we wanted to move to a different day of the week.
That's a Tuesday and a Friday. Yeah, I would
Okay.
say Tuesday.
So Tuesday the 16th would work. They also have the 9th and 10th, which is a Tuesday and Wednesday. Now, I'll be honest, my hope is that we can do a special meeting on the 9th or 10th and interview candidates for CCHS, so we could then vote on the candidates at our September meeting. Because we do have to do it as two separate meetings. That being said, we don't know if the vetting process is going to happen. But my ideal world would be to have a special meeting on the 9th or 10th if we get candidates approved, and then either on the 16th or 19th hold it unless you all feel comfortable doing 9/11. So I wanted to open it up. Is there opinion and we want to do 9/11 here? I mean, the towers are just a few blocks away from here, obviously.
I don't know how to do the mic, I'm sorry, but I would say that, oh, thank you, Mark. I would oppose for the 16th. Am I saying it right? Heather?
You don't.
No, not opposed, I'm sorry. I'm in favor. That's why I'm looking at Heather like, wait, why is she looking at me like that? It's been a long day. I'm in favor for the 16th. I honestly don't want to be here on a Friday. I'm glad we all can say that.
So
Go ahead.
I don't mind having a meeting on 9/11. I think it's still doable to keep it on a Thursday night. And we just make time in the meeting to recognize it and give honor to the day that it is. And so I prefer to just keep it to Thursday because that's what our community is used to. But I'm open to having it switched, but that's just my input. And for a topic suggestion
No,
for,
we'll get to topic later.
Okay.
That's not,
all right.
we're
I was just
talking
gonna say
calendar
high
now.
school like high school application,
Yeah.
but yeah.
We'll get to topics. That's our next subject is actual meeting topics. So we've got a September 16th, we got a September 11th. Is there a preference from the majority?
Can we go around the table and say our preference?
We
and
can,
see?
Rose, we don't need to do a roll call for this, right? We can just, or, I mean, I'm just gonna go, so Ron, are you comfortable with the 11th or the 16th? Either or both, what works for you?
Both is doing good for me.
Irene, what's your preference?
I can do either one.
Francesca, what's your preference?
It's just kind of hard for me because I know the significance of 9/11. But I would do either one. Huh? What happened? Oh, wow.
Maggie? You gotta hit the switch. It's on you. It's on.
The 16th would be good for me.
Heather, you're the 11th, you're 9/11.
My preference is the 11th, but I can make the 16th work if that's what folks want to do.
My preference would be the 16th, honestly. But I'm, I will do whatever the council deems appropriate. I'm hearing Maggie is the 16th. Everyone else can do the 16th. Rose, did you have an issue with either date? Okay. Are we comfortable with the 16th? Okay. All right. So let's make the September meeting September 16th. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that.
I make a motion to
It-
move the calendar.
We will have to do the
meeting.
whole.
We're gonna do them all.
We have to, we
I
have,
thought-
yeah, we have
I
to
thought
approve
we were
the
gonna
whole
do-
slate.
That's fine.
Well, I'm just gonna run through everything
Oh,
because
okay, all right.
most things are still on the regular calendar. So October is the 16th for the date. That is the third Thursday of the month. November, though, does change. That we had November 6th. And the reason for that is the third Thursday is the 20th Thanksgiving. The second Tuesday is parent-teacher conferences. Or I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. 13th and the 20th are parent-teacher conferences. The 27th is Thanksgiving. So the only Thursday of that month is the 6th because the 13th, 20th being parent conferences and Thanksgiving on the 27th. So that would be the reason for doing November 6th.
You can have a party.
We'll have a giant party here. We'll have a late night party. We'll make it a midnight party, Rose. Keep it late here. We'll celebrate your whole day here just because I know you'll love us for that.
I say
There you
November
go.
6th so we can have cake.
We've got money for cake. December is back on the 18th normal schedule. January is the 15th, which is the normal third Thursday. February would be the 12th, and that is because schools are closed on the normal 19th for this break, so the 12th makes the most sense there. So that's a move up. March 26th, and again, it's because the parent-teacher conferences are on the third Thursday of the month, the 19th. So 26th for March. April 16th, back to the third Thursday. May would have to be the 4th because there are parent-teacher on the 21st. So that'd be May 28th, yeah, because the 21st has parent-teacher conferences. Yeah, we'd have to go one later. And then June 18th is the third Thursday of the month. So those would be the proposed dates. Are there any callouts within those dates that you see? Heather, go ahead.
I don't see anything that's like jumping out to me right now, but some of these like later in the year, if things come up, we can also revisit if we need to.
What's that, Rose? May parent teachers on the 21st. Spring break's not in May, it's in April, I believe. Yeah, it's April. Spring break's in April. They close on, it looks like the 2nd or 1st for April and go in the next week. So, all right, is there a motion to approve the calendar as discussed?
I make a motion to approve the calendar as we discussed with the with our next meeting being changed to September 16th.
Is there all in favor? Aye. Any nays? Abstentions? Okay, we have a calendar. Thank you, everybody. So with the calendar, we'll move on to our next topic is, what are our topics we want to talk about? What are our priorities? I will tell you that October, probably, ideally, I think OPT would be a good one to bring in for October. And the reason not in September is because we know September is a mess for busing every year. That's no shock. It's not going to be a shock. But by October, that gives us enough time to really see how things are, being adjusted and how the busing situation is going at that point. It's a real one. Heather, a busing expert.
Could we, when we ask for OPT to come, can we also ask if Kevin Moran can be present?
So Kevin Moran is,
He promised at our last town hall that this year, the routing was gonna be much, much better. And I would like to be able to hold him to account for that.
so Kevin Moran was in charge of the group that did OPT. He was recently elevated. He is now, yeah, he's this effectively the COO, Chief Operating Officer for the city. He's in an interim position, but he's got a huge plate. So we can certainly ask. So I thought October would be good for that, but want to open up, and then also September. Heather, you mentioned
For September, I wanted to throw on the table the high school applications and because I know that that is a pretty like swampy swamp that our parents, students with IEPs kind of have to wade through. And for some of the students with IEPs, it's different than just going into my schools and picking schools. So the whole thing is quite complicated. There's questions about open houses, questions that parents should be asking at open houses related to their student with disabilities. I just think that's a good, maybe have a short presentation, but then also some like, maybe not DOE people that can come and talk about, like I said, like the knowing what your rights are, knowing what questions to ask, that kind of stuff. Like, do you have ICT classes? Things like that.
I would also add, if we're going to do high school admissions, we'd want to do middle school admissions at the same time, because the timing is slightly later for middle school admissions, but it all falls within the same 30 days.
Yeah, it's a similar process.
Yeah. So if we talk about one, we're for the most part talking about both. They're slightly different, but the gist is the same. Any other topics come to mind? You can have a month or you can not have a month, just what other topics are at top of mind for everybody?
Sorry, my mic was not stuck cooperating with me. Yeah, so I want to put it to the council. I'm part of the Multilingual Learners Advisory Council. And so I was thinking that they can come, the multilingual learners, they can come to present. They had a presentation at CCSE regarding some curriculums.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of extra ones.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dee. Yes. Yeah, so for them to present about that, they presented at CCSE, and I think that students with disabilities who are multilingual learners, English language learners, are always kind of put to the side, at least from what I've seen in policy. So I wanted to see if the council would be interested in having them come and present, and how the the curriculums that are being rolled out are going to be geared towards our students with dyslexia, students with autism, and just reading challenges, and another another topic, also that I was thinking, let me just, I'll come back to it because I have to find it, but yeah.
Do you think that having the multilingual language office come in and present, we could potentially see if CCEL wants to join us for that meeting and do kind of a joint meeting like we did before, or no?
No, only because they already presented with them and their needs are different, kind of different than ours. And I feel like they already, it's more targeted for, well, at least in the presentation, they talked about more about, multilingual learners, but again, students with disabilities, uh, um, English language learners with IEPs are not really like considered or talked about. So I just want to bring that up, highlight that, and see how, what that is. Like for us to ask questions and things like that.
I mean, we could also just extend a special invitation for them to come to the meeting if they want, you know?
I honestly think that they would have to present and then ask questions. That's how they did it at the CCEL meeting, because if they're rolling these curriculums out, I would like us to have the opportunity to follow up and ask them about how how they're considering students with IEPs that on this rollout, and just for them to talk about things around that.
Irene, please, and then Francesca.
I want to bring up the topic for the specialized programs such as the ANGS program, the ASD program, the IB program, and the PEP program.
What was the last one, Irene? I'm sorry.
The PEP program.
Yep. Francesca.
I would like to bring up the topic, mental health, just in general, when it comes to like the children and even with the parents speaking to their child about how their child learned differently and how to like cushion it so the child can understand better and be more confident knowing like, okay, I think differently out of the box, but I'm still me, I'm still great, I'm still awesome. And there's so much more to me than this different way of learning compared to somebody else who's learning a different way as well. I know Mental Awareness Month is in May, but I feel like it should be pushed up more, especially not at the beginning of the school year, but a little bit, a few months down, so like you can see how your child is going and just work through with them for the rest of the year. So that's something I thought about.
Thank you. What other topics, Irene?
Yes, I want to add another topic, which is the District 75 inclusion.
Okay, so Andy Curso, who was here earlier, leads the D75 groups. That would be, I mean, that's one of the easier ones, honestly, and same with the specialized programs, because we've got those are the two easy ones, just because it's in the Office of Special Education. We know the people. Michelle Netzler would be the person for specialized programs would talk to. So those two, I think, slam dunk, nice and easy to do. Mental health, the MLLs, OPTs, those are all external organizations within the DOE, but there's more calendarization challenges and finding the right people and the right topics. So just trying to lay it out for everyone. There's two really easy topics to talk about, which are very in-depth, but they're easier to schedule than some of the other ones. Go ahead, Heather.
I think like maybe later in the year, it may not even take up a whole meeting, but I would like to do a check-in on the new CSES, what is it called?
Atlas.
Yeah, to see how it's working for schools, how the rollout is to larger population of students. just to check in on where they're at and the, you know, the plus deltas.
That'll be a whole meeting, don't worry. That could be a few meetings
Yeah,
worth. I
they
mean, all
will be
honestly.
different, yeah.
Yeah. So Atlas is the name of their new system software that is supposed to house all of our students' information for, you know, have IEPs and any notes and other documents that are relevant to our children. It got off to a rocky start. They targeted with pre-K specifically because it was a smaller group. It got off to a rocky start, which you'd expect with new software, and so they were very cautious in rolling it out. It was going to roll out over the summer for K to 12. We'll see if they're ready. I doubt it, but we'll see. There's you know, it's typical with any software program. What's that, Heather?
There's supposed to be a parent facing part of that, right?
Yes. Oh, there is a parent facing
Yeah,
part of it.
so out to K through 12, and I haven't seen anything.
Correct.
Right.
And that's
Okay.
and that's the point is they're having some software bugs as you expect with any major program.
There's always bugs.
Yes. And these are enough that they are probably not going to be ready in time. And they've been honest about it. And look, part of the reason why this is happening is because it was a federal lawsuit where the DOE was not able to track stuff appropriately. They were not able to find stuff on a timely basis. And so part of the agreement with David Banks, Mayor Adams, and the lawyers was that they would institute this new technology system that would allow better data collection and sharing.
And just as in tangent to that or connected to that, at the next PEP, one of the contracts that they have an RFP out for is primarily with Ernst & Young, I believe, for auditing, and a portion of I just read it briefly today, a portion of that RFP is going to be auditing and monitoring special education. So there's probably definitely going to be a tie-in with that contract RFP that they're going to vote on this month at the PEP.
Thank you, Heather. I missed that contract. Thank you. Got some more reading to do tonight.
One
Yep.
other topic to suggest with this like kind of after school for all ideas rolling out. I think and also the expansion that they keep saying of the pre-K seats. I just want to see how those rollouts, more so for the after school programs, are going to provide accessibility and service to students with disabilities, because we've seen with some of the summer rising, we saw with learning bridges and some of the after school programs where they really struggled to accommodate some of our students. And I would like to see what's being done to provide accessibility, accommodations. Potentially DYCD could be a part of that meeting as well, because they're the ones who run the contracts for those programs primarily. So that's also something I'd like to see happen.
So one of the other topics that I was just thinking with the intergovernmental affairs is they were telling me that they can come back in November for a part 2, because we didn't get to talk about a lot of the other topics, and they were just explaining to us about some details, like in the background details that I think families and self-advocates and students would benefit from hearing from them, just to uplift the advocacy that needs to be done on the state and city level. So they mentioned November for part 2, and then I don't know if this is even worth it or not. We may have to follow up or do another survey regarding summer rising, and just kind of like what's going on with that. I personally have been hearing from families that have applied and that are getting rejected. And it's just like data, just having that data or just having that follow up with them and see what's going on. Doesn't really need to be a topic, but I think I just want to put it out there to the council too, to consider that and see how we can follow up with them in the future. And then also, the test scores for the state test scores. There's been a lot of reporting on the students with disabilities and how they did. And I wonder if we can have special education kind of talk about that and what they're doing about that to kind of, make that a little bit better.
Maggie,
our
can you repeat that? What is the topic? I'm sorry.
The state tests for the New York State test scores.
So are you looking at test scores, the K-8 test scores that came out recently? Or are you looking region level? What level of state testing are you looking? Is it?
Yeah, that's all I got from the reporting, but I'll put it in the chat because I have to kind of look back at my notes. But yeah, it was on the report. I don't know if you saw it, Mark, where they scored really, really low.
Yeah.
The general ed students scored higher, but then our students with IEP scored very low. So I just have to follow up on that. Then there's the cell phone ban, but I don't know if that's going to be a topic or not, but yeah. And then legislative breakfast.
Ron?
Yeah, I just heard Heather mention about the after school program. Yeah, because of really bad experience that a lot of parents just came to me about the summarizing program in summer, and I read out their after school program can sustain for all those kids with special education. Because for the summarizing program, those kids with special education, they have to leave the school around 12 at noon because there's no specialist over there, and they have to leave. So I read out about the after school program for all, especially for our kids with special education.
Thank you. That's almost sounds like we should put the after school and summarizing together because it's really a DYCD issue. It's sounding like within it, yeah, it's within the DOE. There's also a DYCD challenge, it appears. So
Just wanted to say too that one of the things that I've learned in the council over the past few years is that and my idea is that these topics that we're kind of highlighting can also be an outline for our annual report. And in the past, we've kind of struggled to write it all at like right before it's kind of due, and it's becomes this like very overwhelming process. And so if we make a point to write a section of our annual report that goes with each meeting topic, then we can write it along as we go along and provide updates when we get them. And then our annual report is essentially written by the end of the year. So that's something else to consider when we're looking at these topics.
So Heather is jumping to our point coming up, which is the work committees and working groups, but she is spot on. We will definitely talk about that, and her call out there is a very good one. What other topics do we have? Irene, please.
Yes, I want to bring out the specialized high school admission test because it turns out will be into a digital exam. And as the website, it did mention that paper exam will be available for the extremely limited number of students who have IEP or 504 plans. So I'm wondering, would that be a possible topic for us to discuss?
I think also just in general, the extremely underrepresentation of IEP students in those schools, and who even take the test to begin with. Like there's a real gap in accessing that test. And just are there other ways potentially for our students to apply to those schools that isn't necessarily based on one test? When testing has shown for many of our students not to be the most proficient way to measure their abilities, their wisdom, their knowledge base, their proficiencies. So I think that's a topic we could visit. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, no, thank you. We have 13 topics right now. We have 10 months left in this calendar year. That being said, we have plenty of time because we have still 22 months to go. So we've got plenty of time to fit the topics in. If there's no more topics, we are running on time. If other topics come up, please feel free to email other council members. Maggie and I will use this. We'll talk to Office of Special Education tomorrow, Heather.
So just Rose kind of tweeted in my ear, if we could get the topics for the next few months figured out, that's really helpful for her.
Yep.
So we don't have to decide everything for the year, but just the next few months. Yeah.
We will see who's available. I've already reached out on actually a few of these topics. They're already trying to see who's available and when. I mean, I have noted that.
Can we narrow it down to like the top 3 that we want to focus for those times so we're a little bit more aware?
That's fine. So right now I have listed September ideally would be the high school, middle school application process. October would be ideally OPT. November was commented on intergovernmental. As being
And then we
ideal.
wanted to do mental health, I think, too,
And
right?
yeah, I think, I mean, we've got yeah, because you mentioned it's sooner than
Well,
later in the
maybe
year.
would be a great time to talk about mental health.
Yeah, I mean, December would be, yeah, November, December, yeah.
I think the mental health issue can combine with the last year problem because they also diagnosed by the neuro psychologist. And the school and the psychiatrists in school, they have no ability to diagnose dyslexia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Mark,
and so we'll check with Johanna and get her working on all these, and we'll list the preference months that have been called out. So thank you. And again, if any other topics come up, please do not hesitate to reach out to everybody. Just send a blast email to all so we can all see it.
Because sometimes things just come up out of the blue that have urgency behind them, and we try to get them in the calendar. Like, for example, last year, when they just told a whole bunch of IESP parents that they weren't getting their services because they didn't turn a form in by April 7th. And it was like people were just, it was huge. And so we kind of got, flexible at the last minute to have a meeting where parents could come and talk and express what they were going through, ask for updates and things like that. So we like to have some flexibility to also like have meetings address urgent things that might be coming up.
Yep, absolutely. Flexibility is the name of the game because we deal with our kids, and we know how we have to be flexible. So yeah, we will adjust as appropriate. Go ahead, Maggie.
really quickly, so the state tests that I was referring to were the ones in reading and math, and I do believe it was from grades 3 to 5. I mean, the report that I saw that was kind of scary mentioned that only 29% of students with disabilities were proficient in math, and nearly 27% were in reading. So that's where I'm really concerned. And then among students learning English as a new language, nearly 30% were proficient in math, and 12.5% were proficient in reading.
I've noted that when we talked to Johanna in the DOE. All right, so the next topic we had was CCHS representative and public advocate. We obviously talked about that already with Tamika, so we'll move on from that. Next topic is committees and working groups. So really we need to get some committees formed and or working groups to start working on some of the stuff now we have everybody in place. I mean, obviously we'll have a couple more PA people coming on board shortly, and we'll have to appoint a member as well through the process for Darlene's position. But want to open it up if there's volunteers that want to be on a committee, run a committee, or have an idea for a committee. Heather has got her hand raised.
Just to educate some of our newer council members, because I did not know this the first time I formed committees, was that when you propose to form a committee, you are now the chair of that committee usually. I think our council is much much more collaborative, but just putting it out there on the table before you make a motion for a committee that you see as needed, because if you do, then you're responsible for that committee. So just putting it out there.
Thank you, Heather. So some of the committees
Things you learn.
yes. So some of the committees we've had in the past are communication committees. We've had committees that work with what did we call it last year? It's kind of like it was an outreach to all the IEP representatives.
It's
District
the
support.
district support committee,
Thank
and
you.
then we had an annual report committee as well.
So district support committee we had last year, and their role was to meet with each of the in the Zoom, the 32 IEP representatives on the CECs. So that we would have a communication flow with each member of the CECs, and so we'd have usually monthly meetings with them to kind of keep them informed and to hear what's going on out there in Ds 1 through 32. Heather?
Also, committee meetings don't have to be in person. They can be done because we're not voting on anything, so they can be virtual meetings. So that's also helpful to know. So it's not like you have to sign up to show up every month for an additional meeting in person to do committee work. You can do that virtually.
So again, we had communication, district support, there was the annual report committee, there was busing transportation, we've had IEP conference committees in the past. I mean, those are some examples, but I want to open it up to you all. Is there something?
I don't mean to interrupt, but if we're gonna have a legislative breakfast, and I'm thinking, as Francesca had pointed out, we could have early intervention, that topic, and families can come, and particularly those transitioning into preschool, then somebody would have to chair that committee, the legislative breakfast. Yep.
That could also come out of like the legislature and advocacy kind of committee. And yes, I will make a motion to form a legislature advocacy committee. If I know the president can't form the committee, but I can't necessarily chair it by myself. So, but I'll put in the work for that. To get started on some of this organizing in legislative advocacy that needs to happen, that we talked about tonight.
All right, so there is a motion to create a legislative and advocacy committee. Is there a second? Or any comments about it?
You mean the second to join the committee or the second and to create?
Not to join. You don't have to join. It's just to create. This is just a creation. You don't have to volunteer for anything at this point in time.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of creating a legislative and advocacy committee? Opposed, abstain? Okay. So we have created a legislative and advocacy committee. If you would like to volunteer on that committee, please let us know. You can let us know via email. That's okay. You can let us know now. But that is created. Is there any other committee that anyone feels that we need to have. Right now, we just have the Legislative and Advocacy Committee.
I make a motion to create an annual report committee,
So
and I'm okay chairing that. Annual report, yeah.
So by state education law says we're supposed to annually do a report that identifies issues and policy concerns that we and families of New York have. That's the law. There's a lot of laws that get followed and not followed by the state. So it's one we did not send out a report the last 2 years. We did more of a verbal report. But you know, we may want to go back to a more traditional written report. One of the reasons why I mentioned in the budget that there's some flexibility in the budget is because a few years ago we actually paid a freelancer to write the report for us because there was a struggle prior and after to get our council members to write the report and do all the research because it's very time consuming. And so that may be something we want to think about. We don't have to make any decisions now on that, but just something to think about. But the motion was to have an annual report committee because by law, we're supposed to present an annual report. Doesn't say how, the format, but we're supposed to present one.
Yeah, my goal this year is to write it as we go, so it's not so oppressive a project.
So there's a motion. Is there a second to create an annual report committee? Again, this is not volunteering for it.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of an annual report committee, please say aye. Opposed, abstentions? All right, we have an annual report committee as well. Thank you. Again, I'm going to list the other committees that we've had in the past, not necessarily in the past year, but Communication Committee, District Support Committee, IEP Conference Committee, Legislative Breakfast Committee. Now, that could be a working group as well. There's a slight difference between the two. Early intervention was mentioned, and a busing and transportation committee. So you think about that. So Heather, you said you wanted to be the chair of the annual report?
Yeah, I can chair that committee.
Okay. And, you know, if no one wants to do legislative and advocacy committee, I can chair that one, but I am more than happy to cede to anybody else in this council. So.
Well, I just want to know some information about, also, this is just a new committee you're making.
Yeah. That's a new one.
We didn't have a legislative advocacy committee in the past because I think given the fact that we're an election year and there are some pretty big contract things up at the state level, that it makes sense for us to push our advocacy at the state more than we've done in the past. So.
And I will say the city as well, right? There's going to be a lot of education council hearings right across the park right there. And so we're going to want to make sure that we represent the council and our 300,000 kids and their families in a more formalized way. I would present a lot of times as an individual. I'd be up in Albany as an individual, but we may want to formalize that process and, you know, write a speech that someone presents as the council. And so it's something we'll have to think about is, do we want to go on that path? And, you know, what we did last year at times is we did a Google Doc so everyone could share and edit the Google Doc. That way everyone got to be part of creating the official paper that we would present.
And I think having an established committee gives our council the room to have people designated to write those testimonies without having to constantly bring it like in the big council and do it all there. Like that committee can be responsible, and we trust that committee to submit testimony to, you know, it just gives it more authority. It gives more authority to get those things done.
Yeah, and again, I still want to make sure we do it like in a Google Doc so everyone's got an opportunity to to participate in the process. So, all right, so we got legislative, we got annual report. Is there, do we want to have a transportation committee this year? Busing? Ron's nodding his head yes. Is there a motion to create a
Transportation committee.
busing and transportation?
Yeah, and the legislative committee. So we just formed, right? And now I would like to form the transportation committee.
Okay, so Ron's got a motion to create a busing and transportation committee.
I
Is there
second
s-
that.
Heather seconds that one. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, abstentions? All right, we've got
And I
a,
think the busing committee can do some joint work with the legislative.
no, there's gonna be a joint work on all of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Are there any volunteers? Do we have a chair volunteer or volunteers to be on the busing and transportation committee? Or do you want, you can email later if you want.
And I can co-chair with Ron.
You good with that?
Yeah.
All right, so we got co-chairs with Ron and Heather. Thank you. All right, other ones that were listed, Communication Committee, District Support Committee, IEP Conference, Legislative Breakfast, Early Intervention.
Oh, yeah, the legislative breakfast one, I could share that one.
Okay, so we need a motion to
I
create,
make a motion to create.
you can't make a motion. So we need
Yeah.
someone else to make a motion to create a Legislative Breakfast Committee.
I thought that that would happen through the advocacy committee, right? Wouldn't we do it through that?
We can do it that way.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then the legislative breakfast would be one of the things that we plan with that
All
committee
right, so
potentially.
why don't we
right?
roll that? I mean, that's fair. Let's roll
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Legislative Breakfast under Legislative and Advocacy Committee.
So we can create an ad hoc committee later if we need
We
it.
can do working group or ad hoc committees at any time. Right. All right, so, so I think, the points are well taken. I think this year more than ever, having a legislative breakfast, legislative lunch, legislative evening, whatever it is. Ron, I know you and I have talked about this a couple of times about, look, we got a mayor's race going on. If anything's gonna happen, it's gonna be now, because in 4 years, the next 4 years after they get elected, they don't really care. But they need people to vote for them. So if there's any chance, and especially as we talked about, it was talked about earlier this evening, there hasn't been a lot of talk on education from any of the candidates.
Nope.
It's been a pretty
silent.
quiet, which could be classified as good, or certainly could be classified as scary, because we don't know where they stand on a lot of things.
We have to make a lot voice for that. We have 300,000 students with IEP service or disability.
Yep, no,
Because when I
ahead.
bring the busing issue to the city council old person, and she just have no idea why could be an issue that the kid in the school bus without AC. Yeah, she cannot imagine. And she just told me, oh, my kid have the same issue. There's no AC, so why is the problem? Just like, no. No, okay, I rather keep it secret. I told you later.
Okay, no, so legislative breakfast we'll put under there, thank you. Again, communication, district support, IEP conference, EI, those are ones, we don't have to vote on the other ones if we're not comfortable voting now, but, or creating any more. But something to think about is how are we gonna get the word out to our IEP families, the 300,000 families, how do we wanna get word out? How do we wanna get word out to the 32 representatives that are IEP representatives on the CCSEs? Don't have to make a decision tonight, but just something to think about.
I
Thank you,
think,
Heather.
so if the district support committee, I would, that's not, we haven't created that yet, right? Yeah, I make a motion to create the district support.
Can't.
I call for, is there a motion? Is there a motion to
There you go.
create the district support committee?
Do we want to call it a communication and district support committee and just make it kind of an all-in-one, or call it an outreach committee?
Yeah, I also,
What's that, Irene? I'm sorry. Thanks, Ron.
You mean communication and outreach committee?
Yeah,
so each of the CECs has an IEP rep now and a District 75 representative. And so the district support committee last year really was focused on bringing those those folks to the table. So we could support what's going on in their districts, and then we could also engage them in what our larger council citywide was doing. And it's also a way to communicate some of our stuff into their districts through their CECs. So that's kind of the purpose it served last year.
I think, you know, we could combine it into one that does general outreach to those 32, but also to figure out how to outreach appropriately to every parent.
I also just want to point out that we have several council members that aren't here. So it makes me, you know, maybe this is something we want to revisit at the next meeting, and give other members who aren't able to be here tonight a chance to volunteer as tribute.
Yeah, and then volunteers can happen throughout the year. You know, you can not volunteer today and volunteer tomorrow, or 3 months from now, 10 months from now. It's no rush on that.
But I also don't want to form a committee that doesn't have the support
doesn't
at the
exist.
table to meet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Irene, you're up. Ron.
Yeah, I think the outreach committee is really good for us to reach out to other IEP CEC member in different districts. I definitely think we need that to reach out to them as a united strength.
Right, so is there a motion then to create a outreach support committee?
Yes.
Okay, so a motion, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, we got 2 seconds, perfect. A second and a third. All in favor of a communication support and outreach committee? Support and outreach committee? Not district, because it's not district, it's everybody. It includes that. So there's a motion, there's a second, all in favor?
How about
Ron's working on name, good.
service? How about service and communication? Outreach is fine.
I like Doreen's name that she had before.
Which one?
Communicate, isn't it communication and outreach? That match.
All right, that's kind of where Ron was too, right? Well, I don't care what we call it. As long as we're getting the word out. I mean, I don't care what we call it. You all figure that out. But communication, outreach, support, whatever you want to call it, committee. We had a motion. We had double seconds. All in favor of creating a committee to be named later? No. Abstentions, nays. Okay, all right. We have a TBD official name. Whoever's the chair can figure out the name for it.
So I just want to make sure now
And the
so
member.
far we have 3 committee, right? One
Four.
one is registered, registrative, and one is transportation, and one is the outreach.
And the annual report.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we had a good start. We need volunteers, so think about it. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot now, but we'll certainly need volunteers. We'll also, honestly, we'll need everyone's help in the annual report. Figuring out what you can, you don't have to figure it out now, but at some point we'll need you to write up something about what you're passionate about, or what you've seen, what you've experienced, or what you've researched at some point. So I just want to put that out there. June 30th.
June 30th is when the final report has to be done, but we also have to vote on it. We want to have a final draft to vote on at the very latest our June meeting.
Yeah.
But ideally, we have this great topic of this for this month. So let's write how that topic is important to special education, and do some research, put some data in there, and just write it section by section based on our meetings. Because our meetings tend to, even when we call urgent kind of topics that come up, those are topics that are important for that year usually. And so it makes sense to write the report based on what our meeting topic was each month. And then we can always include other sections if we need to, based on whatever, more general special education things, related service provision that we don't necessarily have a meeting on, like those more like, we can include that as well.
So can we send out that report to all the parents in New York City?
Ideally, once it's published, it goes on our website, it can be sent out to everybody, it gets sent to DOE.
Elected
In the
officials.
past, we asked them for a response to the report, and we don't ever really
don't.
get any. Because in the past, we've also made recommendations for each section, so we can, when we meet in the first committee meeting, we can decide if that's what we want to do. If we want to have each section provide recommendations based on what the council's seeing, or if we just want to present the data.
Cool. All right, thank you, everybody. So again, if you want to volunteer, please send an email out for what you'd like to volunteer for. Let's move on to the next topic, which is CCSE retreat. Maggie?
Yes. So I put out that idea for folks to consider last term we didn't have a retreat, a council retreat for all of us, and it's not really to talk about, it's actually not to talk about council business, it's just for us to get to know each other. And I think Heather has been advocating for that for a while now, and I think it would be a good idea that since this is a new council, since we're trying to gauge each other's just how we can work with each other, complement each other. And so I wanted to put it out there for you to consider about having a retreat that can include food, depending on your availability, to see if you would want to have it during the weekend or during the week. It could be virtual, it could be hybrid, or it could be preferably in person, because that is how we're going to be able to connect as a council. If we have it in person, it's more interpersonal, if you will. So yeah, I just wanted to put it out there for you all.
And I think this would be separate from us just like, let's get together and bring potluck, and like, that's not as official CCSE. Like, I still think that we want to just do let's just get together, like a picnic or something like that. Yeah.
So Heather, I was actually thinking of, instead of like having a picnic, or having sort of like a gathering kind of retreat where we really get to know each other, because whatchamacallit, just as a first, and this doesn't have to be our first time that we do something like this, but I would like to have some sort of presentation and just talk about, just to get to know each other, but absolutely have food. I actually have a location. If it's done in the weekend, I have a location in mind. If not, we could do it here in Tweed, and just want to hear your thoughts on the retreat. Right. Yeah.
God, we'll have like icebreakers and like fun things to do and just speak.
So is there a motion to create the CCSE retreat?
Yes, I have a motion to create a CCSE retreat.
Second.
I. No, I'm an I. Yeah.
Just one quick more thing. So, I have a question. So, do we have the ability to send out the message to all the parents, in the name of CCSE, just like we have some message to, because I in my CEC20, sometimes I will receive the email from the CEC20, and they will inform what happened in the CEC20, and the message they want to send to us for the parent in District 20.
So we have a list of a mailing and emailing list that people can email our inbox and ask to be added. And I can also put like on the front page, pin it to our website. If you want to join our mailing list, click here and they can submit their name and their email address. And then Rose will add it to our mailing list, but I don't know that we have the ability to like just email every IEP parent. Yeah, with a mass email.
Definitely do not have the email addresses, and the DOE would never give it to us because of parent confidentiality and all that. But as Heather said, Rose has a distro list of a few thousand email addresses that certainly she can send out on behalf of CCSE, and does on behalf of CCSE. So that could be part of the communication and support and whatever else we name it group to work on. If it's a newsletter or it's an update, whatever, that would be a good thing for that group to
So
work
they
on.
have to subscribe us first, right?
Yes, because we have to get a name.
So we can send out the email. So how about a text message? Anyway, they can receive a text message from CCSE.
Well, Rose sent stuff out yesterday. So there's no, it wasn't, the battery died.
I feel like the
Oh.
best way you can reach out to your parents is when September comes, if you know of any of those parents that have IEPs, you tell that parent and then tell that parent to tell another parent. Because a lot of the times those parents know each other. And I think that would be the best way, because I don't think DOE is going to give us any type of information like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Now I'm talking about if they subscribe CCSE so that they can receive the email and text message.
Well, Rose sent out a meeting notice a couple of times. So if they got the meeting notice, they're on our distro list. If they did not get a meeting notice from Rose, they're not on our distro list. So we've already sent out effectively test messages by just sending out the meeting notices. Does that make sense?
Because I just want to find a way to so let's say Heather said that they we are going to put a link over there, and in order for the parent to register, yeah, or subscribe the CCSE email list, right?
Yeah.
So once they just enlist their email or the phone number, so can they receive the message from us through the email or text message regularly?
So we don't do text messaging today. Maybe that's something we need to do.
I think I think what Ron's referring to at
Yeah.
the district level is like the gamma communications that they send out. They can send out, like my school sends out a mass text to all the parents.
Yes.
They can send out, and then when they send that text, it also sends an email. And sometimes you get a phone call from DOE and you pick it up and it's like, your child's school is having parent-teacher conference.
Just-
Sign up on this website, you know? I don't know if we have access to.
No, no, no. Districts have,
No.
schools have, not, the CECs don't even have access to that system. They have their own distro list that CECs have created. And maybe we need to talk to other CECs and see if we can borrow their lists effectively.
Because we are not getting we are not getting information from anywhere. We are getting information directly from the parent who subscribe CCSE. So I'm asking if they decide to subscribe CCSE. So I know that they will receive an email from CCSE, but can they receive text message from CCSE?
Not text messaging today, but I think, Ron, that's something that we should look at with our new committee we created, right? Because it's nothing that says we can't do text messaging. We just haven't done it historically. And you're a younger generation than I am, obviously. You know, you youngins are in the much more in the text messaging. I think you're hitting something that we're missing. We need to do texting, and I think you're hitting it.
I would say, yeah, that's old generation, but in education, so we just finished the CEC election, right?
Yep.
So the DOE, they send out a message to the parent to ask them to vote in the CEC election through the text message and email. And I see a lot of Chinese parents, they just noticed the message from the text message. And I was so surprised. And that's sometimes they may jeopardize by all the junk email in their mailbox. And they think that the text message is more secure and more official from the DOE.
Yep.
And that's weird, but that's true.
So I think that's a goal for the communication support, whatever committee it's named, to figure out how we start that up, because it's the right thing to do. You've hit the nail on the head, and we've been missing out on that. We'll see. No pressure on anyone on that, but communication, yeah. So yep. That's probably going to be like discussion number 1 or number 2 in that committee, is trying to figure that out, because we got to get our outreach further. We got to get the communication out there.
I mean, just to put it out there, the DOE itself struggles with this because we hear all the time where they come and talk about all these great programs and things and that, and principals don't know about them, our communities don't know about them, parents don't know about them. Like, so this is, you know, it's a problem that exists on many levels, not just in our council. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Anything else before a motion to adjourn? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Everyone going to second?
Second it.
All right. There we go. Thank you. All in favor of adjourning? All right. Abstentions, nays. Okay. Thank you, everybody. 8:32. Have a wonderful night.
Good night.
See you on September 16th.